So to see how this operating system evolved, we're tracing a very specific and honestly somewhat brutal historical thread. We are going to start in classical Greece.
A great starting point.
Right. It's a society that built an interface so messy and unpredictable, it actually forced the invention of philosophy.
It was a system defined by unresolved tension.
Completely.
Hmm.
If you look at the origin of the Greek cosmos, the starting point isn't a benevolent creator saying, let there be light.
No, not at all.
The starting point is literally called chaos. But it's not chaos like, oh, my room is a mess.
Mhm.
The ancient Greek concept of chaos was a yawning, dark, terrifying abyss.
Yeah, a complete void.
And out of that abyss emerges Gaia, the earth, and the primordial forces. So the tension is just baked right into the foundation from day one.
Right. And when we look at how the Greeks categorized the forces acting upon them, the division is remarkably stark. You have Apollo, who perfectly embodies that X variable of order.
Right. Apollo's logos, reason, harmonious art.
Exactly, architecture and logic. He is the stabilizing force that allows a city-state to exist. But pushing back against him is Dionysus, the embodiment of chaos, or Y.
Right. The god of wine.
Wine, ecstasy, raw instinct. He represents the unrestrained, wild aspects of life that completely defy logic.
It's the ultimate clash between the boardroom and the rave.
That is a perfect way to describe it.
And the Greek system tried to manage this clash through this massive, sprawling hierarchy. It's like a corporate ladder, but, with lightning bolts. You have 7 distinct layers of management. Down at the absolute bedrock, you have the primals and the titans.
The heavy hitters?
Yeah, these represent completely uncontrollable, massive forces of nature. We're talking about Cronus violently overthrowing his father, Uranus. I mean, you can't pray to a titan to save your cross.
No, they're way too big. They're too raw to even notice you.
Exactly.
They're the pure expression of the Y variable, unfiltered chaos. So to create any semblance of a habitable world, those forces had to be suppressed.
Which brings us to the third layer, the Olympians. Zeus leads a rebellion, locks the terrifying Titans away in Tartarus, and sets up shop on Mount Olympus.
Right.
And then below them you have intermediaries, heroes like Hercules bridging the gap down to humanity, and eventually all the way down to the underworld.
It's a very complex stack.
It is, but looking closely at Zeus, he's the manager of the cosmos, sure, but he acts an awful lot like middle management.
Middle management in what sense? He's the king of the gods.
Well, he has the title, right? But he doesn't have absolute authority. Zeus isn't omnipotent. He answers to a board of directors that he completely fails to control.
Oh, I see where you're going with this.
Yeah, he and every single one of the gods on Olympus is entirely subject to Moira.
Fate.
Blind, absolute, unchangeable fate. If fate decrees something, Zeus cannot stop it. He can't even alter the timeline to save his own mortal children during the Trojan War. He is completely handcuffed by the system.
And this is the defining architectural feature of the Greek interface. They intentionally engineered a system where the friction between order and chaos is left completely unresolved.
Right.
The gods aren't perfectly good or perfectly rational. They are petty, they're jealous, and they frequently make disastrous mistakes.
Yeah, they're just clashing forces trying to manage an inherently broken world. And it's all under the shadow of a blind destiny.
Which raises a massive psychological dilemma.
Totally. Imagine you're living under that system. Your gods are flawed. The ultimate power in the universe is a blind fate that doesn't care about you at all, and there is absolutely no promise of eternal salvation.
No happy ending.
Right. It sounds incredibly bleak. So how do you find any meaning in a life like that?
By elevating the concept of human action. Because there is no metaphysical safety net,
Yeah.
The supreme value in Greek culture becomes tragic heroism.
Tragic heroism.
Right. You don't act bravely because you're hoping to earn a ticket to paradise. You act with bravery, nobility, and inner strength precisely because you know the game is rigged.
Wow.
You are confined within the rigid, unchangeable limits of fate, and your courage is defined by how grandly you live within that cage.
So you face the terror on your own terms.
Exactly.
But this deeply imperfect, unresolved interface, it actually broke under its own weight eventually, didn't it?
It did.
The mythology failed to provide the stability people needed, which forced them to invent an entirely new tool to manage the universe.
Yes. The emergence of Greek philosophy, or logos, is a direct result of this mythological failure.
Right.
Because if your gods are just middle management throwing tantrums, and human existence is entirely subject to blind fate, praying and sacrificing animals isn't going to give you reliable answers.
No, of course not.
So human beings realized they needed a different mechanism to decode the cosmic order.
So they turned to intellect, to logic and mathematics. They started trying to measure the X and Y variables themselves.
They sought deep, structural understanding of reality rather than just waiting for a flawed God to rescue them.
Which was an incredible leap in human cognition.
Huge.
But while philosophy is a brilliant tool for the individual mind seeking truth, it is a very fragile tool for running a massive, sprawling empire.
It doesn't scale well for governance.
No, it doesn't. Which requires us to explicitly transition to the next massive shift in our deep dive today. State Rome.
Yes, the Roman pivot.
Right, because if classical Greece looked at this messy, unresolved cosmic tension and said, we must use philosophy and individual tragedy to navigate this, Rome looked at that exact same system and realized it was far too unstable for a global superpower.
Way too unstable.
So they decided to legally bind the heavens to a state contract.
And this transition from the Greek framework to the Roman state religion is one of the most brilliant administrative pivots in history.
Yeah, it really is.
The Romans didn't bother inventing new myths. They looked at the Greek pantheon, translated the names into Latin, so Zeus becomes Jupiter, Ares becomes Mars.
Classic rebrand.
Exactly, a rebrand. But they fundamentally altered the function of those deities. They stripped away the philosophical messiness and replaced it with pure bureaucracy.
So let's look at how the variables shift here.
Yeah.
In Rome, the X variable order is no longer an abstract philosophical concept. X is the state.
Right.
It is the rigid Roman legal code, the military hierarchy, the physical infrastructure of the empire itself.
And the Y variable, chaos, is everything outside of that structure. It's wild nature, unpredictable weather, foreign enemies.
Basically anything they couldn't control.
Yeah, and the volatile whims of the gods that could easily destroy a city through plague or famine.
So the interface, the T variable that manages this massive friction, becomes the republic itself, and eventually the empire. The government is the literal mechanism keeping reality intact.
It is the interface.
And here's where it gets really interesting, because the core operating principle of this Roman interface is a concept called do ut des, which translates to I give so that you may give.
Yes, an entirely transactional relationship with the divine. It's a legally binding contract between humanity and the gods.
But I got to push back on this a little bit. I struggle to see how a society actually functions on a spiritual level with this.
Why is that?
Because it sounds like an ancient end-user license agreement.
Yeah.
You scroll through the terms, offer a bull at the altar, hit accept, and you're cleared for another fiscal year.
That's a funny way to put it, but...
But where is the belief? If it's just a contract, isn't it completely hollow?
Well, it's only hollow if you apply a modern, primarily Judeo-Christian expectation of religion to it.
Okay, fair point.
We are conditioned to think of religion as a private, emotional relationship aimed at personal moral redemption.
Right.
The Romans intentionally engineered that out of their system. They didn't care about your internal emotional state. The priests in Rome, the pontifices, were literal state officials.
Like bureaucrats.
Exactly like bureaucrats. Religion was a department of the government, no different than the treasury or the military.
So if it's not about saving your soul, what is the actual mechanical goal of a Roman citizen praying?
Maintaining the Pax Diorum, the peace of the gods.
Okay.
It was a massive collective balancing act. The belief was that as long as the precise contractual rituals were performed, the gods were obligated to protect the state. If the state prospers, you prosper.
So sin, in this context, has nothing to do with being a bad person.
Not fundamentally, no. A sin was a technical breach of contract. Yes. It was failing to perform a sacrifice with the exact right words at the exact right time of day. If a priest stumbled over a single word in a 2-hour prayer, they had to start the entire ritual over from the very beginning.
Wow. Just because of the typo, basically.
Right. Because a breach of contract risked bringing cosmic disaster, the Y variable, crashing down on the entire collective. Civic duty and religious duty were entirely indistinguishable.
It's the ultimate organizational shell. You pay your taxes, you serve in the legions, and you perform your sacrifices. And if you do those three things, the machine keeps running.
Exactly.
And the system is so focused on structure that eventually, during the imperial period, the emperor himself becomes a living god.
Right, the apotheosis.
He becomes the singular terrestrial node, unifying all worship under his direct administrative authority. He's the living interface.
He is. And the ultimate proof of how resilient this administrative interface was is what happens centuries later when the Roman Empire officially adopts Christianity.
Yes. This is the part of the source material that completely changes how you view history. Because Rome didn't actually adopt a new structure, did they?
No, they didn't.
They took this revolutionary, emotionally driven, spiritual movement of Christianity and just plug it directly into the existing imperial hardware.
Precisely. They took the theology of Christianity and dressed it in Senate garments.
It's wild to think about.
Right. The Pope and the College of Cardinals directly mirror the old Roman administrative structure and the Pontifex Maximus. Canon law is heavily based on Roman civil law.
So the nouns changed. The theology completely shifted toward personal salvation. But the structural hardware of the interface, this massive bureaucratic hierarchy designed to manage cosmic truth, it just kept right on humming.
They literally legislated the cosmos into compliance. It's an incredible achievement of human engineering.
It really is.
Yeah.
But you can't legislate a blizzard.
No, you cannot.
You can't sue a volcano. Which brings us to our final explicit transition today. Because when we shift our focus away from the Mediterranean and move geographically and culturally north, we find Norse mythology.
A completely different environment.
Entirely. They find a system that completely rejects the idea that you can control chaos with a clipboard. In Norse mythology, the environment dictates a very different reality. They don't try to bureaucratize the tension.
No.
They accept its inevitability, and they make absolute friction the 0 point of their entire universe.
Yeah, the Norse cosmological blueprint is arguably one of the most structurally tense, violent systems ever conceived by the human mind.
Intense.
Unlike Greece, which began with a yawning dark void, or Rome, which focused on a founding city, Norse mythology begins with a cataclysmic collision.
Right. It begins with Ginnungagap, Gap, the Great Gap. To the left, you have Niflheim, a realm of absolute crystalline ice and freezing fog.
Freezing cold.
And to the right, you have Muspelheim, a realm of absolute, raging, uncontrollable fire. And existence itself, the first living entity, the primordial giant Ymir, is literally born from the violent physical friction of those two extreme opposites smashing together in the abyss.
Life is created from extreme temperature and destruction.
Yeah.
And eventually, Odin and his brothers slay Ymir, and they fashion the physical cosmos out of his shattered body. His skull becomes the sky, his blood becomes the oceans. The universe is literally built out of casualty.
So how does this map to our equation? In the Norse system, order, the X variable, is Asgard, the fortress realm of the Aesir gods. It represents the relentless, desperate will to preserve structural law and keep those icy and fiery forces at bay.
And chaos, the Y variable, is represented by the giants, the Jotnar, and specifically it's personified by Loki.
Right, Loki.
But it's vital to understand that Loki isn't just a simplistic villain in the modern sense. He resides inside Asgard alongside the gods.
Right, and this is what I was wondering when I read the sources. Why would a society intentionally write the agent of their own destruction into the center of their ruling pantheon?
It's a great question. And it's because they understood that a system without any chaos becomes stagnant. It freezes over, much like Niflheim.
Oh, I see.
Loki is a built-in disruptive algorithm. He is the driving force of change, mischief, and ultimate destruction that the cosmic system actually requires to force evolution.
Which brings us to the most incredible interface of all three cultures. Because, I mean, how do you manage a universe born of fire and ice, built from a dead giant, with a disruptive algorithm literally living in the capital city?
It's a tall order.
You can't use a middle manager on a mountain, and you can't use a legal contract. You use a massive interconnected network. The Norse interface, the T variable, is Yggdrasil, the world tree.
Yes. It acts as a colossal living server rack.
I love that analogy.
It manages immense, agonizing tension, rooting itself in different realms and holding the 9 distinct worlds together in a delicate balance.
But the roots of this tree hold a terrifying secret. And this is the feature that entirely separates the Norse system from Greece or Rome.
Right.
At the base of Yggdrasil sit the Norns, the weavers of fate. And what they have woven for the cosmos is a mathematically guaranteed, pre-programmed crash.
Ragnarok. The doom of the gods.
Ragnarok. And this is what I find so deeply haunting. The Norse system possesses absolute knowledge of its own destruction. They know exactly how the operating system fails.
The giants will breach the walls.
Yeah, the dead will sail on a ship made of fingernails. Asgard will burn. The gods will be slaughtered. and the world tree will collapse into the abyss.
Complete devastation.
So it begs the question, how does a culture function? How do warriors find the will to fight if they know for a mathematical fact that the apocalypse is coming and their side loses?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, it reveals a profound philosophical resilience. The Norse system demands a level of psychological endurance that's far beyond Greek tragedy.
Yeah, no kidding.
The role of humans and the role of the gods themselves is to fight bravely and with honor for order, even when they know chaos is absolutely guaranteed to win the final battle.
You fight because the fight itself is the moral imperative, regardless of the outcome.
Exactly. Look at Odin. He is the supreme systems administrator of this universe. And what does he do? He voluntarily sacrifices his own eye,
Just plucks it right out.
plucks it out of his head, and drops it into a well, just to gain deep cosmic insight into the system's code. He willingly suffers to understand the matrix he is trying to defend.
And look at Thor. He is the powerhouse, right? The firewall, defending the grid, aggressively holding back the forces of chaos with his hammer, knowing full well he will eventually die drowning in the venom of the world serpent.
They endure the friction because surrendering to chaos before the appointed time is a failure of duty. But the Norse system hides one final brilliant mechanism in its code.
Okay, what is it?
Ragnarok is a total crash, yes, but it is not a permanent deletion.
The reboot.
Exactly, the reboot. From the smoldering ashes of that total apocalyptic collapse, a new, purified world arises. A few gods survive, 2 humans survive by hiding in the wood of the world tree, and the cycle restarts.
Oh.
What this proves, mathematically, within their mythology, is that the interface, the T variable, survives even the total destruction of the structural hardware. The physical world burns, the individuals die, but the mechanism of existence itself, the eternal necessity of order and chaos finding a new balance, endures forever.
So what does this all mean for us? We've traced this cosmic blueprint through 3 entirely distinct worlds and seen 3 vastly different human responses to the exact same problem.
Right.
In classical Greece, the failure of a messy, fate-bound mythology forced human beings to invent logic and philosophy to decode the universe on their own. In state Rome, they looked at the terrifying unpredictability of nature and built a massive bureaucratic machine, attempting to legally bind chaos into a manageable contract. And in the brutal extremes of Norse mythology, they built a worldview that demanded absolute honor and relentless struggle in the face of a mathematically guaranteed apocalypse.
And yet, across all 3 of those vastly different cultures, the underlying equation never changed.
Right.
Whether you call order Apollo, the state, or Asgard, whether chaos is Dionysus's wild nature or Loki, the interface always emerges to reconcile them. The friction between order and chaos isn't a malfunction in the universe. The friction is a feature. It is the very engine that keeps existence alive.
And, we tend to look back at these ancient myths and think we've outgrown them. We think we don't need these sprawling metaphysical interfaces anymore because we have science, global economics, and technology.
Right. We think we're past it.
But think about artificial intelligence for a second. We are currently pouring billions of dollars and immense intellectual energy into building what we hope will be the ultimate flawless T's variable.
Oh, that's a really interesting point.
We are trying to code a perfect, omniscient interface to manage the chaotic friction of the modern world, hoping it will finally solve the equation and prevent our own modern Ragnarok. But looking at the deep architectural history of humanity that we've explored today, are we actually building a savior?
Or are we just writing the code for our own Loki?
Exactly. Are we building a new built-in disruptive algorithm that will eventually force the whole system into a hard reset? Something to think about as you navigate the structures of your own world today.